Welcome to the SNN.Network Canada virtual event. I'd like to introduce our next presenter, Kyle Hall, CEO of INEO Solutions. Kyle, the floor is yours.
Great, thanks, Paul. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining me today. Just off the top, I just wanted to let everybody know that INEO Solutions Inc. is the name of our operating company. The public entity is called INEO Tech Corp. So just know that we use those interchangeably, INEO Tech Corp and INEO Solutions Inc. Going to slide ahead here. And so, I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking to you about what we do and how we're completely innovating a market that we think is ripe for disruption, and that's the retail loss prevention market. We've created an innovative, patented product that allows us to replace those legacy loss prevention sensors that you see at the front end of a retail store. You know, the things that beep when a tag goes through them on a piece of clothing or a label on a box. And we replace those with systems that do loss prevention, but they also do advertising, big, bold advertising screens in them, and collect data analytics for the retailer in terms of the traffic going in and out. So that's in a nutshell what INEO Tech Corp is about. And I will just kind of give you a bit of our background. Myself, I built a company from 8 people to almost 200 people and listed on the TSX-V, then took it to the TSX, and eventually sold to Staples. But we sold online photo systems to the largest retailers in the world: Walmart, Costco, CVS, Rite Aid, you name a big retailer around the world, and those were customers of mine. And after I'd left Staples, a good friend of mine, Greg Watkin, called me and asked me to come and see what he was doing. And Greg had founded INEO a couple months earlier, and he'd spent his career in the aerospace industry, where he'd used RF and RFID technologies to track parts on the manufacturing floor of large aerospace companies to build airplanes. And so Greg had all this accumulated knowledge in RF and RFID detection, and he looked at the loss prevention sensors at front end of the retail store and said, these things are archaic. They're legacy systems. They're dumb systems. All they do is beep when they detect a tag to tell the retailer nothing. He said, I can make those so much better. So Greg said about making a better system, and he figured out we'll put these things online, we'll track them so we can trend alarm events, we'll add video to them so we have captured video of the alarm event. But he was looking at him and saying, we don't really want to just sell hardware. And so Greg went back to the drawing board a bit and said, hey, we know that customers are putting cardboard sleeves over these things with advertising because they're the first thing customers see as they enter the store, last thing they see when they leave. Totally perfect opportunity for customer engagement. And so Greg went to put a big LED screen in it. But if you look at the industry literature, it says you can't do this because it generates too much radio noise. You won't be able to detect the tag, or the system will just not work. Greg figured out a way to do it, and we patented that. While we were doing it, he loaded it up with edge processing capability and put some AI in there so that when we're extracting the video from the event, that we can actually tell who's coming and going from the store in terms of gender, people count, age, that type of thing. So that's a bit of the background on Greg and I. We also added to the board Steve Mattias, who is the former CEO of Staples Retail, Serge Gatesco, who is former managing partner of PwC Canada, and Dave Jaworski, who's he was the original recipient of the Bill Gates Chairman's Award of Excellence. He built a career inside of Microsoft, left there and did a few startups, and he's back at Microsoft again. We're 25 people, very heavy on, of course, on the R&D side, and then also on the sales and market development side now. So this is the INEO Welcoming System. We call it a welcoming system, like I said, because it's customer engagement. The first thing they see when they enter the store, they leave the store. And it's such an improvement over those traditional loss prevention sensors that you see at the front of the store. Like I say, it's all about the digital signage. It's engaging the customer, delivering messaging from the retailer, delivering advertising from brands. It's packed with artificial intelligence, edge processing, so that we can pull analytics out of it. And of course, it's all connected. And it does loss prevention, which is really, when we look at it, the loss prevention is the Trojan horse. You have to be good at loss prevention to be at the front entrance of the store. And because we're good at loss prevention, we can actually just Trojan horse in all these other features to take that space, because nothing else can take that space. These spots are reserved for the loss prevention sensors. If you look at the pure loss prevention side of things, the legacy systems, like I say, they're dumb systems. They just plug into a wall and they beep. We give them so much more capability in terms of, they capture the video 10 seconds before the event, 5 seconds after, we stream that to a site, and to the dashboard, and the retailer can go and click on the event and see what happened with that loss prevention event. The stores all have CCTV, and so they can go back and capture, see what happened within the CCTV, but try figuring out when that alarm went off. Go back in a sea of CCTV footage and try and find that event. We give them a point in time that they can click, they can share that video, they can download the video, they can share it with law enforcement, whatever they need to do with it. We also, because we're connected, we know the heat of the process. We know the memory utilization. We know when these systems are operating, when they're not, and we can reboot them remotely. We can attend them remotely. And, of course, we can update these things remotely, deliver new features remotely. The best part of it is we can take out the existing system that the retailer has, put ours in, and we do not have to change the tags and labels that they have on all of their inventory. We work with their existing inventory that they have in terms of tags and labels, seamlessly integrated with all of their other systems. On the data analytics side, when we capture the video of the loss prevention event, we keep 10 seconds in a circular buffer so that we can reach back and grab the 10 seconds what happened before the alarm went off. Well, when it's in that buffer, we can analyze that with our AI to pull out, customer count for sure, but the gender, the age, how happy they are, that type of thing. I just want to be really clear here. We do not do recognition. We are not doing, that was Kyle or that was Steve or whoever come in. We do a single data count to the database. We analyze the video in the store in real time, and the video is done. Every 10 seconds, the video just falls off. We don't retain pictures. We don't keep bionumeric profiles of people, anything like that. Totally within the privacy legislation of every jurisdiction we operate in. But we can give really good data to the retailer. You think about a retailer, they've got cash register data, but that's about it. We can have them do simple conversion. You convert better if you add a salesperson to the floor. You convert better when the manager's there. We can then help them change product and marketing based on age and gender. What is the demographic of that store location? So some real good information that we can garner at the front entrance of the retail store. About 90% of the extra data that the retailers don't have today, we can get just by getting at the front entrance of the retail store. We can integrate that to their other data streams that they might have within the store. We can do that, within their Tableau or SAP. We can export them, or we can do it ourselves and crunch some of the numbers for them. So how do you get from here to there? We've built great technology. We've got good people. We've got intelligent people, great dev team, great sales team. To be able to sell large retailers, you've got to prove to them this stuff works. So we went in our own backyard here, right in British Columbia, Canada, Alberta, the province next door, and there's independent liquor stores everywhere here. And so we went out to the independent liquor stores. They all use loss prevention systems, and we basically walked in and said, we're going to take that old loss prevention system, we're going to put in one of these, and we'll give you better loss prevention. We'll give you the data analytics off it, and we'll give you a percentage of the signage. The rest of the time, we are going to sell that signage because we're going to make money from selling that advertising. We signed up 135 stores. That is our calling card to now sell to the large retail chains around the world. We've got a network that's proved out our business model in terms of being able to sell advertising on these things, being able to collect analytics off of them. It's proved out that our technology works extremely well. It's proved out that we can scale and deploy these systems well. And at one point we said, we might just scale this network up and keep going with the independents, but we've got so much interest now from large retailers. The store count slowed on the independent store network just because we're focused on the large retailers. Because this independent store network has really given us the calling card to say, this is what we can do. Let's move it on a larger scale. So we've been out talking to a lot of major retailers ourselves, people that I sold in the past with the last company. We've got some good connections. We've got some good tests going. But along the way, this large European security company called Prosegur heard about us. Right in the middle of the early days of the pandemic in 2020, they arrived at our door and they wanted to know more about our system. They do about 4.1 billion euros in revenue annually, mostly in guardian services and alarm monitoring, that type of thing, traditional security. But they also had a loss prevention division, and they sold those legacy loss prevention systems. And they also just moved into the U.S. market, bought a couple of small companies there. I say small, like 40, 50 million in revenue. So they're making a footprint in the North American market. They saw our product and they said, that can change loss prevention. That can change it from the sale of a hardware device to a recurring revenue model where you get monthly fees. It's not about selling the hardware. It's about taking monthly fees either from advertising analytics or just a SaaS fee because the retailer wants the system and will fill it with their own marketing. And so we worked a deal with Prosegur. Prosegur, the licensing deal we did for them, worldwide licensing deal, is that they will manufacture the systems, they will distribute, they will install them, and they will maintain them. What INEO will do is run the online aspect of it, the SaaS-based component of it. We will make sure that the content management system is functioning and working, that advertisers going to the right screen at the right time, that the analytics capture systems are working, and we're pulling off that. And we run that whole infrastructure within our cloud environments. And it's a great partnership for that. They relieve us of any of the hardware necessities. They've got the field people out there to be able to deploy and install these things. They will also help sell them, and we will run the online aspects. They already have tests going. We've shipped them 10 units now, some to Europe, some to South America, and some in the US. These trials are now moving along quite nicely. We will be able to announce them as they go beyond the trial phase. So next year, you should watch for a lot of catalyst events around who these retailers are that we've got trials running with. The last thing I want to say about Prosegur is they wanted, as part of the licensing deal, the right to defend our patents. They looked at our patents and said, those are very strong, they're very defendable. If a company comes along and wants to violate them, we want the ability of defending these patents on your and our behalf. And so we built that into the agreement. So no longer could a big company come along and try and bleed us with legal fees. They will look after that for us. Oh, yeah, and I look at my next slide and realize there's one more thing about Prosegur, and that is that the manufacturing is coming online. Greg Watkin, partner here, was over at their Czech Republic facility in Eastern Europe about 4 weeks ago, and we expect the first units come off their assembly line over there later this month. So they'll give us the ability of scaling quite well. We get a large customer order for a few 100,000 units. We need their capabilities to be able to fulfill those, and that's coming on stream now. So a little bit about the business model. So for those small networks, the small retailers, the independent liquor store network we have, where we gave them percentage of screen time and we kept the rest of the screen time, we're selling the available screen time that we have for up to $500 per month per store. The cost of these systems are about $2,500 a system. So once the advertising is filled on these things, we're paying for them in 5 months. So we know it's a good model going forward. We've proven that out. The other interesting thing is programmatic is entering the out-of-home advertising space. Out-of-home is defined as place-based advertising, like billboards you see around town, train stations, airports, subway, hockey arenas, football stadiums. Out of any advertising that's placed out in the public medium where people are, where they can profile the demographics where people go. That part of advertising is growing really, really well right now. It's very strong. It's growing probably as fast, close to as fast as the online aspect right now. And we're now tied in with a couple of programmatic advertising partners where brands will go to their site and say, show me all the screens in downtown Vancouver, and our screens will appear, and we just get advertising flowing into us. We haven't even sold this advertising. We've got advertising flowing in, and we get paid for that. That's going to go further and further along within the advertising industry as more programmatic happens within the out-of-home advertising space. And we will benefit from that. So if you look at the very bottom of the slide, then the large retailer model, you see that we're pulling 500 advertisers from independents, and we're only getting about 200 from a large retailer. That's because we're splitting revenue with Prosegur. So the model very much is Prosegur is going to pay for the hardware. Our top line will go down, but the margin, the revenue that we get is high margin. It's pure margin revenue to us. So as much as the top line isn't going to be as much, we will make a much higher EBITDA out of it. And with the large retailers, the model changes a bit because they already have all the brands in their stores. They're already taking inside money co-op dollars, funding their marketing from the brands. A lot of the retailers will sell some of that themselves, so they'll fill the screens themselves. Other ones will work in partnership with them and still put third-party advertising in these that meets their store guidelines and ties in with their brands. As far as target markets, like I said, we target liquor to start, but there's so many places these systems are. If you walk into any major retailer out there, you see the loss prevention systems at the front entrance of their stores. It's just a de facto thing that they have to prevent theft and keep the loss numbers down. If they don't have them, shoplifting a crime of opportunity, they just lose stuff left, right, and center. They have the systems there, they can at least control it. They know when they're losing stuff, they know when alarms are going off, and it prevents at least the opportune theft. And so there's lots of areas for us to go after. We're not going to really target one segment over another because we're getting tests across the board right now. So it'll be more about opportunistic. You'll see us announce retailer by retailer, but large retailers. We're talking stores with thousands of locations now. So with a large retailer, it typically is we get a 2-store test to prove out the technology. We're putting something on the corporate network for the first time, so they've got to be comfortable with that. And then it'll roll from there to we'll take a city and we'll take 25 stores, we'll take 50 stores, and then we'll get larger and larger rollouts. So it's not going to happen overnight, but over the course of 2022, early 2023, our store numbers will explode. They will go from these small tests that we have going to hundreds and thousands of stores rolling out. This is just a little bit on our financials. 2021, we reported for our fiscal year end, which was the end of June. We reported $745,000 in revenue. Not big numbers yet, but the growth is there. So our growth is growing quite well right now. Our burn rate is fairly low for a company that's investing as heavily as we are in R&D and business development. We're sitting on $4.4 million in cash. So we've got a lot of runway here in terms of what we have in house, but revenue is starting to grow. The numbers you see on the INEO growth on the left, those have come from the one analyst covering us right now, Beacon Securities, Gabe Leung. Those are his numbers. We're pretty comfortable with them. And this really ties into the fact that we have, like I just said, we have tests going with stores. If you add up all the retailers that have tests going right now, and the numbers of stores, we're in the high thousands of stores that they have, 6,000, 7,000 locations if they all said yes and they all rolled out all stores. That's not going to happen right away, but it's going to happen in stages. And by 2023, we'll be right in the sweet spot of putting the systems in. $2,500 per system. Even if we're getting we're getting $500 a month between us and ProSecure. If we don't have to pay for that $2,500, we're getting $200 a month. The numbers will add up quite quickly. So, a bit on the cap table. We did a financing in March of this year, and with that financing, we'd issue some warrants. So the warrants are at 55 cents, and they are due in March 2023. If you look at the stock chart, we went public right prior to COVID. Of course, COVID hit, retail stocks just took a beating. We kind of went down with retail. We hunkered down, just focused on the business. Not much you can do about the stock in the middle of the early stage of the pandemic. Last fall, as the vaccines were announced, retail popped up a bit. We kind of came up with them. Since then, it's trended down with Delta out there. But retailers that are surviving the pandemic, they're surviving the retail apocalypse before that, they're investing in their businesses now. They're investing in technology. We fit in a sweet spot of them wanting to know more about what's going on in their store. They want to engage their customers better. They want to talk to their customers better. And we are that piece at the front door of the store to allow them to do that. So we're in a sweet spot for the retail market reemerging from this. And we're completely unknown story. We're talking to you folks today on this presentation. We kept pretty quiet over the last year and a half. And we plan to change that in the next year. We've got a lot of catalyst events coming these retailer tests coming into fruition, a lot more on the technology side. So as we announce those, I think you'll see a change in our profile, and we'll certainly have more people that will know who we are. And so that's basically it. We've got a scalable SaaS model that's really based on us owning that spot at the front entrance of the retail store, serving up great engaging advertising, pulling in the analytics. Our big partner, ProSecure, is going to really allow us to scale and grow. We've got the tests in place to make next year a success for us. We're getting more all the time, and we're quite excited, really. I don't know, I talk a little fast and I talk a little excited myself because I love talking about this stuff, but we've got an experienced team. We've got some great people working here that are just going to help us drive this business. And with that, I will stop talking for a second, and I'm going to just take a look at how many questions we have. That question is, what is our vision for the company in the next 2 to 3 years? So the vision really is all around those large retailers. Not so much on the independent retailers that we started with. That, again, was just proving ground. We're going to be deploying at large retailers and taking as many stores in their chain as we can get over the next 2 to 3 years. Some will be a relatively methodical, slow roll. Some will be much quicker. There's equipment that they have in their store. They probably replace 10, 15% of their existing loss prevention every year anyways through attrition. Some of them are older systems. Those will be easy to replace. And then this next step is just moving and replacing them all. So the vision really is a large number of stores paying us a monthly fee, either directly from the retailer or from a combination of advertising and analytics sales. And the technology progressing even more where we just create a more defensible patents around our products continuously and expand some of the things that we do for these retailers. And the question was, what is the expense to each retailer per location, and how do we sell the advertising, and is it a rev share with retailers? So the expense per retailer per location is nothing. Our model really is we don't want the retailer to have to buy hardware. We're not in the business of selling hardware. We're differentiating ourselves from Sensormatic and Checkpoint, the two big players in the space. Sensormatic sells about $1 billion worth of hardware annually, and Checkpoint pretty close to the same of those traditional systems. They have to keep selling those things to keep making money. We want to put systems in and get recurring revenue from them every single month. And that's kind of the difference. And if we can keep the ownership of those on our books away from them, where they don't have to actually pay for anything, they don't have to put the capital. Retailers are investing in so many other things right now. Getting capital is a tough job for them. So, you think a 2,500 doesn't sound like much, but you put that over 1,500 stores, 2,000 stores, it adds up in a hurry, right? So ProSecure are willing to front that hardware and us sell the advertising. The advertising will be a combination of either the retailer filling the advertising from their own brands and their own messaging that they want to put on there, and us selling third parties that meet the requirements of that retailer. Some of it will be where we do share revenue back with the retailer. Some of it will be they will take their piece and we will take ours. So it's a bit of a flexible model to get to the final number. We just need that final number to make sure that us and ProSecure have enough margin in this. We don't really care exactly how the business model works on a retailer by retailer basis. I've got another question that says, some bigger stores probably want multiple systems. Does that increase the monthly revenue per store, or is it still around 200 to 500 per store? Yes, subtle point that is exactly, I appreciate the question to answer this. Some retailers have multiple entrances. They might have 3 entrances or 4 entrances, and every system we put in generates additional revenue for us, additional fees, because it's additional impressions that we can make with customers. It's additional impressions that we can make, engage with customers on. If they have that many entrances, the traffic volume is typically a lot higher too, right? And the more traffic volume that you have, the more you can sell advertising for. It really is a combination of impressions, traffic, and the type of traffic that you can sell for. So we just announced a product a couple of weeks ago called the INEO Gate system for global anti-theft environment. It's a companion system to go with the welcoming system, the screen system. So some doors we might put in one screen and a companion system to cover the full door, because you typically need one on each side on some wider doors to give good full coverage. Some doors might have a welcoming system on each side, a screen on each side. Depends on how heavy that traffic is and how much more we can sell that advertising for. The gate system is obviously a little bit less cost because it doesn't have the screen in it, but it does everything else. It still captures the demographics, still sets off the alarm, still captures the video, that type of thing. So it's a nice combo system that we have. And, we envision some stores might have 8 screens. Some stores might have 1 screen. It's really a factor of how big that store is and what their traffic is. If we have 8 screens, yes, we're going to have 8 times, the 200 or the 300 or 500, whatever it is per store that we're getting out of that. And I have another question is, how committed is Prosegur? We started this deal with Prosegur in January 2020, and we announced the LOI. Some really good people there moved along, and in April they actually brought in new management on their retail division. They brought in a gentleman that had run Sensormatics division, loss prevention piece for years, Tony John Frio, wonderful man. He then hired in 16 new sales reps that used to work with Sensormatic and Checkpoint. They're going right after those guys. But of course, when you bring in new management, everything slows down. So it's like, what happened to your Prosegur deal? Why is it taking so long? Well, they had new people come in the middle of it. And I think it says a lot for them and a lot for us in the fact that, yes, it slowed it down, but it never stopped it. And they're very committed to this going forward still, in terms of our system being the centerpiece of what they're doing in their loss prevention initiative in the U.S., Europe, and Latin America. So I believe they're very committed. We'll see the fruits of this in the next year, and that should make a big difference to our revenue going forward. And with that, I believe that's the last question. And I thank everybody for joining me today. It's been great speaking. If there's any other questions, please follow up with us directly. We'd be happy to answer them. Have a great day, everyone.
Thank you. That concludes today's presentation. Thank you for tuning in.